we were seining, purse seining for herring down Jonesport, Beals Island. It was wintertime. And it was about a 2 hour run off to get back into Jonesport from where we were fishing in it. It was wintertime, February or February, March. And it really breezed up really bad. It came on 30, 40, 45. And these boats weren't real big boats. So you had to slow them down. You didn't pound into it all the way in, but we were quite a while getting in. No, I can't really think back of anywhere I thought had it.
Yeah.
When we went to the Grand Banks, because going there, you do face the weather. Boats were bigger, but you didn't have any islands to hide behind or anything either. So whatever weather came, you usually jogged through it. You know, just keep her into it. If it was too bad, you just couldn't run into a port somewhere. And you saw a lot of weather, but never ever had any fear of it or anything, or thinking that something could happen.
How about any trips where things went very, very well? Where either it was a great catch or...
Well, I remember the worst one I ever had.
Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, that was on the Grand Banks. That was put on one of the boats out of Rockland. Way back, there used to be, I don't know, 4 or 5 big dragons that used to fish that based in Rockland. And we were fishing on the Grand Banks, which was, if I remember right, something like 4 days and nights steaming just to get to where we fished. And then we tried to get 7 or 8 or 9 days fishing in. And then you had another 4 days and nights coming home. And hopefully with a trip. This particular trip, we happened to run into a lot of bad weather. So we didn't get our fishing time in. And you can only stay out so long. You had fuel and grub you had to live with. And we were getting close to running out. So we had enough fish to just about pay the expenses of the boat. Because we worked on shares. Fuel came out first, and the ice came out, and a couple other expenses came out off the top. And then the rest was divided up. So if you didn't get enough out of it, then you didn't get it. You could go and not make anything.
Yep.
And they had a little union in Rockland at that time. Nothing powerful or anything, but they had a thing that if you had it, they called it a broker, if you had a trip that you didn't stock enough to share. And I think they had a little nest egg that they had put together that if you had a broker, you'd get $60. So for that 3 weeks, I got $60. That would have been the hardest trip I think I ever took.
How have you seen the fishing industry change? That's a pretty broad question, but I don't know what things might stand out for you.
Well, of course, the lobster industry has grown. Not in number of boats, but in the kind of boats that are going, and the amount of men now that are going has expanded a lot, because the price is a lot better. And we used to fish for 25, 30, 35 cents in the summer and fall when we would be catching most of our lobsters, and they might get to $1 in the middle of the winter when we weren't catching any. So that's changed a lot. The boats themselves, like I say, there used to be 5 or 6, 7 draggers that were in Port Clyde, just Port Clyde, or even more than that, I guess, at one time, which we were like the 2nd or 3rd largest fishing place. You had Portland, and Booth Bay was pretty big, and us, Rockland. And of course, the ground fish industry is the biggest one that's been hurting. And they haven't been able to really get it back yet. Scalloping has come back in good shape with good prices. And that was going downhill too, because I had my son-in-law and one of my sons both went scalloping. And they were in on the last end of the good times when things were turning. And it went right downhill. And then a few years ago when the government stepped in and started passing some laws, days at sea, and closed areas, open areas, different things that they've done to try to bring the scallop industry back. They've been very successful at it. And the market has gotten bigger and bigger, so the price, of course, is a lot more than what it used to be. So that's been a big help. They've got that, but the ground fishing industry, they haven't been able to get their hand on really to get it improved. It'll happen someday, but meanwhile, a lot of them gone out of business, sold out or this or that. So that's probably the biggest difference is the dragon industry, more so on this end. I think there's still some in Portland, there's still a few draggers, but not the fleet that they used to be.
And then how did you finally decide to come ashore?
By accident again. My whole life's been an accident. Actually, I didn't really come ashore. I can't remember just when it was, but I decided to back off of winter fishing. Lobstering in the wintertime is not that good, usually. And I'd been years enough then, so I finally decided one winter I wasn't going to go. And it happened that I ended up getting the job at the Samoset working with their timeshare sales in the winter. So I worked there for a couple months that winter. It gave me a good job, and I made more money than I made lobstering. And so I think I stayed there. They liked me, I guess, and I liked them. And so they told me when I went back lobstering that next spring that anytime I wanted to come back, just come back. So I stopped winter fishing, and I'd fish until December and then take everything out and go back to work up there until spring, late spring. Meanwhile, I'd get my gear out and fish all summer and fall and then go back. So made a good second job. I was up there 10 or 11 years. I worked winters and springs. So that helped along. By then I was really getting old. Let's see, I'm 80 now, so I was, let's see, 1, 2, 3. This will be my 4th year that I haven't gone at all. And before that, my son and I used the same boat, but we each had our own traps. And I just went in the summer and fall, and then not the rest of the year. And then I went downhill the next year, set less, and then less. And then 3 years ago is when it ended. I lost my daughter, and it was right in June when I was getting ready to fish and all that, and I just kind of took a lot out of me then to get over it. Well, I didn't get over it, but I just didn't feel like going anymore. So that's when I just passed everything on, gave it all to Brett and said, it's all yours, I'm done. And so that's when I got done completely. It was about 4 years ago.
Wow. That's a great story.
Well,
are there other things you'd like? And we probably
right now I'm just going to say we're sitting at my kitchen table, and what I'm looking out on. I've been looking at this view for 50 years now, and I have still not got tired of it. I love it. Way back, the people, because I grew up in New York, so I saw all kinds of people, had all kinds of friends, and the people up here were so genuine in general. They were friends. They were good friends. And they took you for what you were, not what you pretended to be or what kind of a car you drove or what you dressed in. They see right through the mirror or the glass. You know, it was just down to earth. Everybody helped each other, which they still do. And I'm getting to the end of my breed. There's only 2 of the friends I grew up with up here alive now. So we talk a lot. We kind of kid about it. I said, God, Ray, when we were fishing together those years, I said, we used to think someday we're going to get old and we'll have all these fish stories to tell. It's just you and me now. I tell fish stories. So we fished a lot together when we were seining and dragging. We used to a lot of times be on the same boats. But it was the people was a big factor. Of course, the area, I mean the beauty. How can you ever knock this? You know, I don't care where you look. I sold real estate a little bit part-time, and that was when I get people would talk to me about buying something that had never been here. And God, there's so many beautiful places in Maine. I'd usually end up telling them, you know, your best thing to do is rent here sometime, spend a month or 2, 3 weeks, and travel around. This is just so many places. You can't nail one down. I don't care if it's Cushing, Friendship, or Clyde, Harbor, or East or West. And get a little feeling. I mean, if you still like it here, if you find it's kind, we'll see what we can do. You know, I'm talking about people that really weren't. They knew that there was a dream there, you know. And it's kind of the dream that I saw. I didn't prove. Nothing was planned. Almost everything happened.
Yep.
No complaints coming.
That's a nice way to go through life, is just let it experience it as it comes.
Well, we worked together a little on the comprehensive committee.
That's right.
Sharon too.
Yeah.
Before we finish, could you just briefly talk about the different fish you went for dragging, and then a little bit about herring?
Mm-hmm. Well, when I started, when I was a kid on Higgin, it was what they call pair seining, which was a way you had a big net that was leaded on the bottom and caulks all over the top. The nets we used way back then were about 150 fathoms, so 700 or 800 feet long, and about 50 or 60 feet deep. And when you saw a school of mackerel, mackerel was done more day fishing. Herring was night fishing. I'll explain that in a few words later. But mackerel, you sighted them, schools of fish, and then you set that net around them, and you had a line that was in big rings fastened to the bottom of the net. After you made your circle, then they called it a purse line, which was like a woman's purse, where you wenched it tight, closed the bottom of the net right up. Then you had them. Until you got her closed in, you didn't. You set that circle, and she was open, but then you closed the bottom. So you missed them a lot. You didn't get them every time. And that was mostly how they caught mackerel and herring. Flatfish, that would be bottom feeding fish like cod, haddock, hake, flounder, yellowtails. Those all more feed on the bottom, so you had to use drag nets, which was again a net that was weighted on the bottom and caulked on the top, but you dragged it on the bottom. So you had to have smooth bottom, mud or sand. Couldn't do that in the rocks. And again, you towed for a length of time and brought her back and hope you had them, and maybe you did or you didn't. And you just made 3, 4, 5, 6 tows a day. And that's how they caught whiting. Only whiting was a summer fish, and haddock was more of a winter fish. They'd be wintertime caught, and then they'd disappear in the late spring, and you wouldn't see them again until following winter. And then shrimp became a big industry up here. Again, it was a winter industry. The fish were here, shrimp were here in the wintertime. And that was done dragging the same way as you do ground fish. Because when they were feeding on the bottom, that's when you had to catch them. When they were up in the water, you couldn't catch them with a net because they were so small and spread out. Mm-hmm. So shrimping became a big industry in the wintertime, and to go along with the ground fishing. And those are the two industries right now that are in a dry spell. I can wait to see who's on the line. It's probably from far. Oh, I gotta get it. Usually it's another type. Yeah, hello. Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh, it's little Donnie's birthday today?